I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me at the back? Fantastic. And you know it's me because I brought my pegboard with me. And my job today as author of this wonderful piece of equipment is to explain to you how it came into being and what my background was that helped develop it, and then my collaboration with Learn Play Nexus. So I started life as a teacher. I started in early years, which I think is the best experience any teacher could possibly have, because when you watch young children develop their motor and language and social skills, you almost like getting a window into the human mind. So I was very captured at that point. Then taught at Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, and then became a psychologist. And that was when I last took a rain check, I think I'm still a psychologist. But I was a movement specialist. So obviously my main focus was children's motor development, motor and perceptual development. And you're aware of these children in the early years who perhaps are poorly coordinated and quite limited in their movements. But it's only when you teach higher up the school when you realise these problems don't go away unless you address them. So then you're dealing with 8, 9, 10-year-olds who still can't write. And it doesn't just affect their playground plays, their sports skills. It actually affects their achievement in the classroom. So I became a specialist teacher, wanted to find out how we could intervene to support these children. And I was very lucky to meet a neurodevelopmental team at Great Ormond Street who had developed a number of different apparatus types like this. And I could see what an amazing impact even 6 weeks of therapy using these materials could have on a child's scholastic achievement. So obviously I wanted to be part of this, and I went to work for that team, and it really was stunning, the impact that we could make. But sadly, very few children actually went to the clinic at Great Ormond Street. Most of the children in the country who need support, they go through the NHS onto the waiting list for a physical therapy, either occupational therapy or physio. And I don't know about you, but in Islington, they were waiting 3, even 4 years to get seen, by which time they'd gone to secondary school and we'd lost them. So as a teacher, I really felt we must find a way, find something we could do in school that made a difference to children during this waiting period. I wasn't pretending we were therapists, but I thought we can't just sit here and wait for 3 years and watching these children struggle. So of all the apparatus I'd used at Great Ormond Street with the perceptual therapist Bella Shapiro, this one it always seemed to pop up as something that I could use. So we developed this, and our focus was very much handwriting and children who had recognised motor problems. And I became chairman of the National Handwriting Association. I don't know if you know that, but it's a charity which supports therapists, teachers and parents with advice and materials and training for teaching of handwriting. And excuse me, it was then that I met Simon Jones through what was then called Nexus. You know it as Learn Play Nexus, because he was one of the corporate sponsors of the Handwriting Association. And we developed these programs, and I trained the advisory teams in 6 different London boroughs. So we was disseminating this work quite fast across London. And through the NHA, we had an in-service training program which was countrywide. So we were getting there. And then, you know, when you think everything's going right, the sun's shining, the sky's blue, you don't realize there's a hurricane round the corner. Suddenly I had a message that my supplier, who made all the pegs and pegboards, had gone into liquidation. And I was left with 4 boxes of pegs and 11 pegboards. So I rang Simon and I said, my career has hit the buffers. What am I going to do? And he said, don't worry, Nexus will make your materials. So thereby started a very happy collaboration with Nexus. And they had Charlie on board, who was a graphic designer. They said, we'll redesign your booklets, your instruction booklets, your cards, everything will be much sharper, much more professional. And so it was. And the pegs themselves, we redesigned, didn't we, at the time. And then it was Simon who said, well, why we only focus on children who've been struggling for years? couldn't we use them in the early years to catch those children who are at risk and to minimize the impact? So then he came up with the idea of using a small board. We redesigned the materials, the copy cards, to be age appropriate for the early years, and the pegs are ideal for them. And so then we trialled in many schools how it would work if children sat round a table in a group with a teacher or teaching assistant and did these exercises early on. And as you'll hear later, it can have a massive impact. So that's how we developed. We're still in a very happy collaboration. We develop all the time, depending on the feedback we get from the teachers who use it. So that's why it's really important for us to see what the teachers report back today. So I've been left with just two things to do to you. There is so much in an exercise with a peg and pegboard. I can't begin to tell you all of it, but here we are. The first thing is we heard back from teachers the most significant change in the children was, particularly boys, but all children who were disengaged with learning, those who've had trouble sitting and concentrating, those who didn't want to join in. It had a massive impact. They wanted to join in, they loved the pegs, they enjoyed the work. And of course, if you don't establish a reciprocity with the children, you may as well go home. You've got to have caught your children. So that was the biggest message we got. But the other things, just to run through quickly, posture, you sit at a table, the pegboard's in front of you. You need to use your core strength to keep you in a position. I mean, children don't sit at the table very often to eat or do their homework anymore. They have to for the pegs. When you hold the peg, it fits. My hand's too large, but for a young child it sits in the palm of the hand and keeps open what we call the thumb web space. You're supposed to have a space in your hand to allow the fingers room to move when you write. So the peg sits in the thumb web space, and the three fingers round the neck of the peg actually strengthened, because those are the fingers you need to hold a writing implement. Yes? So the peg itself gives you a workout. Then you've got the resistance to the board. And as you press, all the muscles in your forearm and your upper arm are working as well. So you've got your core working, you've got your upper and lower arm, you've got your hands, your fingers. Then you've got the pegs on your non-writing hand, and you feed them into the writing hand. So you've got a lovely bilateral integrative movement. And as well as being a good balance exercise, it does something else. It sends the messages between the two halves of the brain. So the language areas meet the spatial areas, and they communicate through this bilateral movement. And there's so much more I could tell you about the benefits, but these things I'm showing you now are what you can see. But the real message, the real reason why pegs are so exciting is what you can't see. And that is, every time you do these exercises, something is getting activated in your brain. Areas of the brain that may be under-functioning suddenly come to life, and you can establish new neural pathways. So the young children are getting an activated brain. And one of the things I've done in the second half of my life is I want to know why all these things work. And I had a colleague who did research in Trondheim University, and he had children doing writing and pre-writing exercises, wearing a hairnet of electrodes, because we wanted to know which bits of the brain were working. Well, I said, well, it's obviously going to be the motor cortex, isn't it? And probably the language and the visual cortex. So off he went, and we compared it with lots of different activities. Pegs to paper and writing. When we looked at the results, the whole brain lit up. So when he published his research, he called it 3 fingers write, but the whole brain works. So if you're interested in research, look that up, because it really was a very stunning result. So we have lots of ways why we want to promote this. But it's based on 3 main concepts. Embodied cognition, which means that you learn by having a bodily contact with your physical environment. The second one is that you can enhance the learning experience by using language. In the motor learning, it's called augmented learning. If I wasn't so old, I could teach you how to hop on one foot. But you would learn just by watching me, or you could video me, and you could learn to hop on one foot. But you can't learn to handwrite just by watching somebody write. You need so much more. So we need to augment our learning with language. And the last one is teaching for transfer. So just being good at a motor skill doesn't mean that you're going to be good at all the classroom skills that have a motor component. We tested this out in the early 80s. So can I just look at the last bit? So I hope you'll take away 4 words. Listen, do, say, and draw. So do is this idea that you learn through physical contact. And it doesn't really matter. I'm afraid I have to use my grandchildren because I don't have permission for children anymore. But, you could be riding a bike, it could be building with Lego, it could be, craft, arts and crafts, it could be just on the beach looking for shells. Whatever you do and you engage physically, not only do you engage more efficiently, but your processing is deeper and your attention is longer, it's more robust. And we know this in so many contexts, I'm sure you understand that. Next one, Charlie, please. Enhancing language. Now, the spoken language, which we're talking about, has 2 elements. It has the listening and it has the saying. So we ask children what they're doing, but of course, we need to feed in the language and then we need to draw it out. So, can I go back, Charlie? Thank you. If you see in this photograph, you can see this boy is actually listening. I mean, you know as a teacher, don't you, whether they're listening or not. And if they're not listening, just go back a few pages until you've got his attention. But this is nice because you're working in parallel. You're not eyeballing each other. You're working in parallel. So that's not such a good example of that exercise, but say I'd asked you to make this. So I say to him, I want you to make a line of 5 red pegs on the left side of the board, starting at the top and going down to the bottom. So then he says it, he does it. And when he's finished it, you say, tell me what you did. And he'll say, well, that over there. No. How many? What colour? Which side of the board? Where did you start? When did you finish? Which way did you move? You're feeding in the language, you're drawing it out. Sometimes it's like blood out of a stone for the first session or 2. After that, they suddenly click into it. And so everything you do, the child has to listen. Quite careful instructions. I might just say, what are you going to make for me? And if they haven't been listening, they might just make 5. They have to listen to get it right. Okay, last one, thank you. And then the last one is the transference. We did a lot of experimentation in the 80s with teaching children motor skills programs, with walking along a board and balancing and threading beads. And after 10 weeks, we tested them. We found they were very good at walking along a board and balancing and threading beads, but their handwriting hadn't improved at all. So that message says you have to transfer everything you do. So that's the draw bit. And as you see the design cards, circling, well, you know this, your early years practitioners, circling is the first movement on the page that a child does. Scribbling, probably vertical strokes, later horizontal strokes, and when they're 4.5, oblique strokes. But the circling is at the heart of everything. So circling is a natural movement. What isn't natural is always circling to the left. But we are interested, we know what our intentions are. Our intentions are letter forms. Every letter that starts with a curve starts with the curve to the left. Okay? C, O, A, D, G, Q, S. So no letter which has a curve to the left starts with a curve to the right. So that curve to the left is absolutely critical if you're going to help children make handwriting automatic. Yes? So children very quickly get into the habit of transferring what they've done on the pegboard onto the sheets and then into letter forms. So that is the link. Now, I could talk to you for 4 hours, but I do want to leave time for us to really appreciate what's been going on in the classroom. So thank you.